Hello, I'm Foon and I write the website hustlecastle.site. Today I'm going to explain how armor and magic armor work, the formulas, hidden numbers, little history, and to the best of my ability, how to use this info for improving your squad. And to be clear, I mean armor as in physical and magical armor, the fighter stats, not armor as in armors and weapons. First, I have an announcement. I would really like to keep making content. I enjoy it. I'm learning about video editing. And more than anything, the response has been so kind and generous. I'm really grateful for all the encouragement I receive. But I already spend so much time playing Hustle Castle. To then spend more hours researching, writing, recording, and editing a video is challenging. And not to be vulgar, but if I made money, I could call it a side job or a side hustle, if you will. And that would be much easier to justify. As it is, I don't make any money from the ads that play before my videos. I don't have enough subscriptions and watch hours yet to qualify to apply for the YouTuber Partner Program. And the reality is that even when I someday can apply for that, the money would maybe pay for my event passes each month. With a passionate but small community like Hustle Castle, the numbers just don't work out for ad revenue to become anything significant. However, small passionate communities are ideal for things like Buy Me a Coffee. And in fact, I think all the Hustle Castle creators have a Buy Me a Coffee page. I'm going to try something similar but different. I'm officially launching a merch store. I'm actually really excited to launch it because I've been working with the artist for a while now. The store is starting with a line of mugs inspired by the currencies in the game. For me, the pop culture stuff that I'm really into, I love having references to it around the house, but I like when it's a little more subtle than logos and characters. So I came up with this design, then found an artist with a cool, cartoonish, video game-ish style and commissioned him to make it a reality. I already have the first 3 that we finished here in my home, and the others are on their way to me. I've been using these for a few weeks already and can vouch for the quality. I drink my coffee in the morning, and often the mug is dirty in the sink until I come home from work in the evening, and there's no staining, not even on the bottom. Also, the printing is beneath the glaze, which is important so it won't scratch or chip off. Also, it just looks nicer and higher quality than a mug with just a print stamped on top. The gold coins are my favorite, clear tribute to video games, even to someone who doesn't play Hustle Castle. That's what I would get if I was just getting one, although I also really like how the diamonds came out. And the apples are nice, both as a nod to video games, but also something I can give my mom when she comes to visit. Obviously, I love the whole set. So there it is. I'm really happy how these came out, and I just wanted to let you know they exist, and if it's something you might be interested in. Okay, let's move on to the actual video. Armor is a stat on our fighters. Like most stats, some is built in based on the fighter training level, some is built into the gear, some gets added to the gear with gems, and more recently, since the Lighthouse was added, some gets added to the fighter as an enhancement via elixirs. The armor stat is converted to a percent value, and then literally just filters away that percentage of damage. Always works the same, no RNG. As for the exact mechanics, a fighter, the attacker, attacks. This can be a regular weapon attack, called base weapon damage. It can be an ability of the weapon or an ancient set ability. The target may dodge that attack. Not all attacks can be dodged. If it is dodged, then that's it, 0 damage dealt. Assuming it's not dodged, next, if this is physical damage, the attack gets filtered by the physical armor. If it's magic damage, then it gets filtered by magic armor. It's one or the other. Next, if any shields are in effect, they get hit by the damage. Shields would be my next video, and I have the master himself, helping me gather info on them already. So subscribe to see when that comes out. I'm really excited about that collaboration. Depending on the type of shield, if there even is one active, the shield or shields will either filter another percent of damage for a set amount of time or absorb a fixed amount of damage until used up. And then what's left hits the target, and this is the damage dealt. That's why you can have a fighter who has 50,000 DPS, alive for an entire 1-minute battle, and then in the battle stats deals much less than 50,000 times 60, or 3 million damage. The battle stats show damage actually dealt. An exception to this path is pure damage. Pure damage always bypasses armor and normally bypasses shields too, although that's a topic for next time. And of course there's gear that reduces or removes the target's armor. Armor always works the same when it's there, but removing or reducing it is a common ability. Let's get into the numbers. This is the formula. 1 minus attacker hidden armor over the sum of defender hidden armor and defender current armor. If both the attacker and target have the same fighter training level, and hence the same hidden armor, then the formula can be simplified to defender current armor over the sum of defender current armor and defender hidden armor. So this formula is complicated enough that normal people will not be doing it in their head. I have a table here on hustlecastle.site/armor of how much armor is needed for different fighter training levels to filter 10, 25, 50, 75, or 95% of damage. These numbers are for the simplified case of attacker and target having the same fighter training level. I put the fighter training level 100 numbers into a graph. Here you can see its logarithmic growth. As you increase your armor stats, the returns of percent of damage filtered levels out. Really, after 75%, it's probably not where you should be spending gold. And I also flipped that chart. Here I have percent filtered is the bottom x-axis, and I've added the different fighter training levels. Here you can see that those diminishing returns on investment are worse the higher the fighter training level, but universally true. This next chart is a zoomed in one of the previous. You can see the slope is getting steeper, which means return on investment is getting lower all along. However, it really takes off in an exponential way when getting closer to 100% coverage. Obviously, I wasn't going to make a table with all 100 fighter training levels for all 100% points, and then there's the case where fighter training levels are different between attacker and target. So if you want to calculate a more specific case, then I would use the Goblin bot in the portal channel in Hustle Prime Discord. There is a pinned post on how to use the Goblin bot. Note that your fighter trainer level means target and opponent fighter training level means attacker. At least that's true for the armor function on that bot. I didn't check the others. So the bot should be fed the target's level and then the attacker's level. Now, you might be thinking, wait, what on earth is hidden armor? Hidden armor is a constant number based on the fighter training level of the fighter. The person who found these numbers called it that because they're not published anywhere officially. They had to be dug out of the game code. It goes up as the fighter training level goes up. Here it is as a chart. As you can see, the increases are perfectly linear, with physical armor being very slightly higher than magic armor. The hidden armor is here in the denominator of the formula. So anyone who paid attention when learning fractions in math class immediately knows what that means. It means that the higher the fighter training level of the target, the less that their armor or magic armor stat gives them. Here's another chart. Here I've calculated the percent of damage that 10,000 physical armor stat would filter for a level 1 fighter being attacked by another level 1 fighter, up to a level 100 fighter being attacked by another level 100 fighter. Again, the simplified formula where the attacker and target are the same fighter training level. In the battle between the level 1s, the guy with 10,000 armor stat gets 74% of his damage filtered by armor. In the battle between the level 100s, the guy with 10,000 armor stat only gets 24% of damage filtered by armor. And this makes sense. Again, diminishing returns, and the lower level fighters, their gear and gem slots just don't allow for the opportunity to get the stats high as level 100s. This isn't actionable data, I just think it helps understanding the nature of armor to visualize the data in different ways. Physical versus magic armor. The formula for converting the fighter's armor stat to the percent filtered is the same for physical and magical armor. The only difference is the hidden numbers. As I mentioned, physical armor is very slightly higher. The difference is so small I would call it inconsequential. However, I'm nothing if not pedantic. Since the hidden armor goes into the denominator of the formula, that means that 1 point of magic armor does give slightly more protection than 1 point of physical armor. Of course, they protect against different things. Magic armor only filters magic damage, and physical armor only filters physical damage. And since we're talking about percent, whichever type of damage you are receiving more of, you want more of that respective stat. That will be the bigger win when deciding to give a fighter more physical versus magical armor. Here is a typical battle for me. You can see I get more physical damage, but it varied by the fighter too. My frontline tanks get mostly physical damage for sure. We've been in the age of mages until recently, so magic armor was considered better than physical armor, but now that we're in the age of Dragonborn, in my opinion at least, in the world of Throne Room 11, Ancient Set squads, physical damage seems to be the majority of damage in most battles. I still really like magic armor because I just hate to be killed by an incinerator and then not able to res. So I'm not just going to flat out say that physical armor is better than magical armor, but armor filters a percent of the damage. So look at one of my fighters and think if she would have benefited more from filtering away 20% of magic damage or 20% of physical damage. I've been using the simplified formula for when the attacker and target have the same fighter training level because I think that's most situations. Also, even that simplified formula is interesting enough to spend time playing with the numbers. But now let's look at the not simplified case, where the attacker and target have different fighter training levels. So here, the blue-red data, I've done the math if a level 70 attacks a level 1 target, level 2, etc. to level 100, always with 10,000 armor on the target, and as the target gets stronger, that same 10,000 armor works better against the same attacker. And on the other side, with the yellow-green data, I've calculated the attacker with different fighter training levels hitting a target with a fighter training level of 70 and 10,000 armor. Here we can see that as the attacker gets stronger, the same 10,000 armor on the same level 70 target, that armor becomes less effective. So to summarize, as a target, the lower your fighter training level, the better your armor works. As an attacker, the higher your fighter training level, the better you are at penetrating armor. Why don't people like armor more? You always see people disappointed when they get event gear with lots of armor gem slots. The answer is, armor is good, it's just that health is better. Certain types of gear can only have certain stat bonuses and gem slots. In general, weapons, their souls and rings have offensive stats, while armor as in the type of gear here, their souls and amulets have defensive stat bonuses and gem slots. So you can only have health in the same places that you can have armor and magic armor. So it's not that having 4 magic armor slots is bad, it's just that having no health slots is bad. Why is health better than armor? For one, it's better because it's good against either magic or physical damage. Meta has changed. Archers are in fashion now, but for a very long time, if your mages were getting physical damage, that meant that the opponent's tanks were in your mage line, and you basically already lost. Which is to say that physical armor wasn't very useful on a mage. And the second reason is we're all using increased health souls on our tanks or any hybrid with tank armor. So the higher the health, the better the percent increase. Same for Dracula. That ancient set has abilities based on a percent of her health. And anytime you have gear that's increasing or using a stat by a percent, then you really care about improving that stat. The newest game feature, Lighthouse, also came with 4 new fighter stats: Fortitude, Accuracy, Pierce, and Magic Pierce. We don't know much about these yet, except that they are anti-attributes. They make it harder for the enemy to use the corresponding stat. Since this video is about armor and magic armor, it seems appropriate to mention Pierce and Magic Pierce, even if not much is known yet. We know that the attacker's Pierce lowers the target's armor. I'm just assuming here, but I assume there is a yet unknown formula that turns the attacker's Pierce stat into a percent, like what this whole video has been about for armor, and then the target's armor stat gets reduced by that percent. And then finally, we calculate the adjusted armor stat of the target to a percent like we did before Pierce existed. And however it works for Pierce, it should work the same for Magic Pierce and Magic Armor. I also assume this is calculated per hit. There are abilities that reduce armor for a period of time on a target. I would assume this is not like that the attacker's Pierce affects the target's armor only for hits coming from that attacker, I assume. I forget who said it, but someone pointed out we already had an armor counter, damage. And I agree in the sense that these new anti-attributes feel unnecessarily complicated, but since I'm the pedantic person I am, I will point out the difference. Increasing the damage stat on a fighter increases the base weapon damage of that fighter. If you don't understand that sentence, then I really recommend my damage explainer video, first video I ever made, link in the description. The advice I've heard a few times, and I even gave myself in my Lighthouse video, was to give Pierce to the fighters with high damage, your archers and assassins, aka your dragonborns and legionnaires. However, thinking about it a little more, the fighter who might benefit the most from Pierce, or in this case, Magic Pierce, is the Incinerator. Let's say you have a Dino Wand Incinerator, or any damage mage. That mage does really good damage, but increasing her magic damage doesn't help her much because the magic damage stat only affects base weapon damage, and the damage mage is doing her damage with abilities, not base weapon damage. Now, I don't know for sure whether Pierce and Magic Pierce work for just base weapon damage or also abilities. I'm assuming both, since armor works for both. If it's just base weapon damage, then increasing Pierce or Magic Pierce stats really would be exactly the same as increasing damage and magic damage stats. Except for if you have gear that increases the damage stat by a percent, then increasing Pierce would actually be worse. But in terms of Magic Pierce, there's no one else who it makes sense to give Magic Pierce to regardless, and enhancements don't affect historical power, so whether or not Pierce works on abilities, and again I think it should, it won't hurt to put Magic Pierce on your damage mage. Almost done, but I want to answer the question, how does anyone know all of this about armor? The oldest mention of this formula that I could find is this Reddit post by NoHustler. Before my time, NoHustler had a guide site and something like a mod for the game. The site is gone, and I really wish we could still see it because his posts on Reddit are all really detailed and interesting. The history that I've pieced together from old Reddit posts is that at the time that NoHustler ran his site in mod, Hustle Castle didn't obfuscate the game code, and that he decompiled the code to write his mod, so we got this formula and the list of hidden armor and magic armor directly out of the game code. When Hustle Castle started to obfuscate the game code, he shut down his mod and seemingly quit Hustle Castle and maybe Reddit too, because I did try and failed to reach him there. Now, that post is 3 years old. Is this all still accurate? When I started researching this video, the most trusted source for calculating armor that I knew about was the bot I mentioned on Hustle Prime Discord. I checked, and the bot is using NoHustler's formula. So I'm assuming the bot has been in use continuously since NoHustler got the formula straight out of the game code. And I think we can also assume that if the game developers changed how armor works, then there would have been an announcement about that. And if there was an announcement, then the bot would have been altered or removed from Hustle Prime. The mods there are amazing and wouldn't miss something like that. Anyway, that was my line of thinking and why I trust the info I put in this video. So that's everything I could think to say about armor and magic armor. When you want to calculate an exact percent, I would use the bot in Hustle Prime, but hopefully this gave you a mental picture of how the numbers work to help make those day-to-day decisions on how to use your gems and elixirs. And of course, how armor actually works if you weren't sure about the mechanics before. As always, the written version of this info is on hustlecastle.site. I already teased at my next video, but I will do so again. I am collaborating with Hey to cover shields, so subscribe to see that video when it's ready. One other announcement, we have a few openings in my clan stacks. We are a top 50 all TR11 clan. Also, we're part of a 3-clan family with a shared Discord. Phoenix Rising, also great players. The difference is they have a mix of throne room levels. And Knights Haven is our casual clan. Really fun guys and great home if either you are not ready for a place like Stacks, or if you like the game and community but can't put in the crazy hours. And of course, I'm going to mention it again. Maybe check out my new store and see if the game resource mugs are something you might like to have. Thank you for watching. I read all the comments if you have feedback, and I will see you next time.